Hi guys, today we're going to talk about how World War I becomes a total war. Now we've got the United States involved, Russia's out of it, it's going crazy. So, what are our objectives? What do we want to look at? So, the first thing that we want to look at today is explaining why World War I became a total war in the first place. What is a total war? We'll talk about that too, but I'm sure you guys know that, and if not, you will. We also want to discuss the role of women during wartime, what it is that they were expected to do both on the home front and if they were participating in the war itself. And we are going to look at a nice little tool that governments continue to use throughout history called propaganda. So you're going to have to be able to explain to me what propaganda is and discuss the various ways in which governments make use of it, either for or against their people. It kind of depends on how you look at it and what you think about propaganda. So pause it if you're going to need more time. But these are the things that we're going to be talking about in the next, 10 minutes or so, and a lot more in class, especially with propaganda, because I do think that you guys need to know what kind of tactics the government uses even today. Okay, so first let's start out with total war. Total war, the definition, is basically when you're at total war, the country has realized that it has to end the war. It has to do everything that it has into making this war end. So a total war is when a nation devotes all of its resources to the war effort, and the goal being that if you put everything you have towards it, you can help bring it to a speedy conclusion. Due to this war being a deadlock, a stalemate, and the fact that there's almost no movement in how long this war is, they know we want this to end as soon as possible because our casualty rates, and you might want to pause it, but our casualty rates are skyrocketing, our men are being killed, they're coming home in body bags. We can't see them on the battlefield, our medicine is not up to snuff. This is just something we have to end. Otherwise, there's no end in sight, and it's hurting countries. So there's a few ways that governments go about devoting all of their resources, and one I'm sure you guys are familiar with is that they take the factories and kind of appropriate them to war material production. So, for instance, a Ford plant might be during wartime used to make tanks. Scrap metal, instead of going into other areas or other uses, will go into all of the military's uses, like planes and tanks and bombs and all guns and things that they need. So how do they wage total war? The government is going to have to raise your taxes. They're going to have to take loans, and again, pause it soon if you think you're going to need time. They're going to have to take out loans to pay the cost of these tremendous wars. They're also going to ration, meaning they're going to limit the portions that you get of food and any other product that could be used in the war effort. So you'll get a ration booklet, and that ration booklet might have tickets for 4 gallons of milk and 6 loaves of bread, and you bring one in each week and get what your ration was for the week. Using their resources wisely and making sure that they have enough to supply to their men on the battlefield, on the front, and still try to take care of the people on the home front. So there's a lot that goes into this idea of waging total war. Now, as the men are gone, the ladies, you are going to have to do something while the men are away, because you're going to have to fill the roles that they have left vacant. So I'm going to show you guys some of the propaganda that was associated and aimed at women. But basically, women are going to have to go into the fields and the factories, and they're going to have to pick up the slack. They have to do the things that the men were doing before they left. If the women wanted to help out with in a direct way with the war effort, they could join the military and be a nurse. And again, pause it if you're going to need it. But their biggest and most important job is holding everything together on the home front, keeping the house going, keeping the fields going, keeping the factories running, keeping the men and getting their morale up by writing to them and sending them their care packages and doing whatever you could to make sure that that society kept running, even though the bulk of its men were at war. Now, here are some of the propaganda that you guys will probably recommend and recognize. Rosie the Riveter. We can do it! And getting the women, hey, we can go into the factories, and we can go into the military as a nurse. Take a look, right? So Rosie the Riveter, go into the factories, do what a man can do. Go into the military and serve as a nurse or supply clerk and help the men on the battlefield. One of them could be your husband or your brother or your son. Wouldn't you want them to do it for you? Still the weary, sick and dying need of brothers, sisters' care. On thy higher help playing, now we're burning their share. I can't read that, so you guys good luck. But on thy higher help relying, may we now their burden share. So how these women are trying to help take care of the men. Now, the posters that I just showed you, though they were geared towards the women, were propaganda posters. And so what we want to look at is, what is propaganda? I know you've heard the word before. I'm sure some of you have at least a rudimentary understanding about what it is. But by and large, people and adults don't always understand this. So pause it if you're going to need more time. Propaganda is when you try to spread your ideas. And you do that either by saying how great your idea is or tearing down the opposing idea. The idea that the governments use this for is to control public opinion and get people to support a war or an election or some other policy of government that they need the public's support on. So propaganda is powerful. It's in everything, and you have to be discerning young men and women and try to figure out what is propaganda, what's not, and what is the purpose of propaganda. So here's a piece of propaganda from Britain. You see the Union Jack behind the British soldier there, rally around the flag, we must have more men. The point here is clearly to get men to enlist into the military. And that's the gist of that. And it's appealing to nationalism through the art, and you can see, it doesn't say that it's British, but we can tell. Now here it does say it, right? Men of Britain, will you stand this? 78 women and children were killed. 228 women and children were wounded by the German raiders. Enlist now. Look at the horrible things that they're doing in your country to your men and women and your children. Come and help us, right? So enlisting men, appealing to that nationalism, getting these men to be willing to stand up and fight. So here they're tearing down the Germans and saying what horrible things that they're doing in order to try to get them. Here's one from the United States, right? They've got the German depicted, and you can see his helmet with the little pointy on the top, as this horrible, awful brute grabbing and hurting and hitting the women. This is an American propaganda poster saying, enlist in the U.S. Army, come and help us fight this war. Here's one for a different purpose. Oh, Daddy, please, go buy me a victory bond. So to make money for the government and to get them the money that they need to launch this war. It's something that appeals to the daddy, right? To the granddaddy, to the mommy. Here's one again for the ladies. Gee, I wish I were a man. I'd join the Navy. So you're seeing that, you know, they're trying to appeal to not just the young men, although in large part they are, but also to the women and to the children. Hey, Dad, buy me a victory bond. You know, do your part for our country. Look at this one. This is the guilt trip poster. Daddy, what did you do in the Great War? And they're sitting on his lap, and he's kind of pensively sitting there. Oh, so the cow treated you, you know, like, you get these guys to enlist. Are you doing your duty? And you see them fighting with the redcoats on the floor, toy soldiers, you know, heroes to these young boys. Here's one about rationing. Corn, food of the nation, conservation, right? Serve some way every meal, right? Appetizing, nourishing, economical. This is a cheap food they want you to use, that they have in plentiful supply. Use this during the war so that we can, you know, use our other resources for the soldiers and other things. And here's one that will appeal to the women, to men sitting at home, maybe not going and joining the war effort, and to religious people. So God bless dear Daddy who is fighting the Hun. Okay, again, a derogatory term for a German, to call them Huns, and you'll see that on a lot of the posters that we do look at. And send him help. So you can see what governments are trying to do with these posters. And if you've noticed in the back of our classroom, they are hanging on my shades. And when you pull them down, you see a different propaganda poster. That, again, what they're trying to do, appeal to the people and get them behind this war effort. And in World War I, with the casualties mounting, this is going to be of incredible importance. and we'll talk more about this in class. Have a great night.